Hi guys, my name is Ronnie Fernandez, LCSW, licensed clinical therapist and owner of Ronnie Fernandez Therapy, but for guys. In these videos, I like to have suggestions and interventions for men to help decrease symptoms of anxiety and depression. So in this video, we're going to focus on communication skills. Men are known for having poor communication skills. We often have trouble expressing our feelings, our thoughts with others, and we often just kind of isolate and just think that that it'll just pass, and that we'll kind of like gut it out and kind of just it will just kind of go away. Um, and then we're suggested that we just need to talk about our feelings, but we were never really taught how. So what I did is I started a podcast where I have men talk about how they were able to overcome some of life challenges. So if you're struggling, reaching out for help, reaching out for advice, you can go ahead and go to this podcast. Again, it's called Mindset the Guy Podcast. So please go ahead and reach out to me if you feel like it's a bigger problem, you need somebody to talk to. You go to ronniefernandez.com. Email me at ronnie@ronniefernandez.com. But guys, go ahead and check out the podcast. I hope you enjoy it and you get some value from it. Thanks. Bye. Okay. All right. Mario, thank you for joining me today.
It's always great to be with you.
Thanks. Me and Mario met like 10 years ago, and he was the mayor of Downey. He was a business owner, and he was also a deacon at our church. And one thing that brought all this together was one time you were talking, and you had talked about some traumatic stuff that happened in your life, and how you're how you're so open to talk about it. Just really that left a real big impression on me, and I just thought it would be important for other men to kind of hear your story. Just that I think we think people that are in the public eye, or people that are city leaders have it easy, that everything's comes to them easy. But I think once we talk about our challenges, we better identify with people. And so I just want to thank you for agreeing to do this.
I'm glad. We all need the opportunity to be able to express ourselves. We all need the opportunity to talk about things that happen. We all have pain in our lives. There's different degrees of pain. And I've had a couple of traumatic incidences in my life that changed the course and the direction of my life. I think the one that you're referring to is, we just call it the plane crash. And I was studying to be a pilot's license. My brother was a pilot, and on a Saturday he was going to take my uncle Theo Manolo, that was 49, and Maria Barba, my cousin, she was 12, and my cousin Jorge was 18, and we were all going to fly over to Catalina for lunch. And the day before, I got called for a Little League game. I was a Little League manager at the time, so I couldn't go, and I was very bummed. Well, that day, as he was taking off from Long Beach Airport to fly over to Catalina, the plane couldn't climb, and he tried to turn around. It was the four of them on the plane, and tried to land on the Long Beach Freeway, and he didn't make it, and all four of them passed away. So, how we dealt with it, and my issues, of course, was, I was like amazed and shocked that why was I alive? And number two, why did our great God allow this to happen? These are beautiful people. My brother was 29, and how did he allow this to happen to good people? What kind of God does that? And those were the anger issues that I had. And as I processed it, and as I saw how things were progressing in my life, the one thing that I kept seeing, the constant, was my tia Eva. And my tia Eva lost her husband and her only two kids, 18 and 12, and her husband, Tio Manolo. And from the very first day of the accident, her thoughts were, this is a terrible accident, but this wasn't God's doing. This was a terrible accident. This wasn't God's doing. So for us, I didn't know it then, but she was leading me in a certain direction. I was angry with God for many years, and every time I thought about it, I was like, why did he allow this to happen? So for me, it was a matter of processing things. But the more I talked about it, and then, of course, somebody came into my life and was able to talk to me a little bit more about it. And then all the answers were there, at least, how to deal with this. One of them was watching my tia Eva and seeing her faith journey. And if her faith can get her through something like that, who might argue there's got to be something to this faith business? And so that's kind of started my process and opening me up to what was going on in my life. But then also I had to evaluate. I was spared that day, so what's my calling? Why am I here? And how do I get through the pain of losing my brother, but how do I get through of the guilt that I'm still here, that I was supposed to have been with him and I would have been gone? And so everything that I've done since that time, I think, is somehow in remembrance or an honor, if you will. Honor is probably a better word, of my brother and my family members. Wow. So that was one of that changed my life forever, as a matter of fact.
And how were you able to either deal with it or to cope with it?
Well, at first like when you lose a loved one on there, it's just an unbearable kind of pain. But every day it doesn't get better. There's some days even further down that are worse. Every time there's an anniversary, every time there's a birthday, every time for one of them or something reminds you of them. I'm a big plane nut. I couldn't fly anymore because my mom, it would have, broken her heart, scared her to death to try to lose another son in a plane crash. So I stopped flying. At least I stopped flying myself. So you deal with it through faith. You deal with it through reading. You deal with it through talking to others, and talking things out. Sometimes how you feel is very helpful. I was blessed. The Holy Spirit was upon me when I found my wife, and my wife was catechized and had a strong faith. So she was able to lead me in a certain direction on there just by the simple questions and just her being there. But to me, I got through it just by converting myself and opening my heart to let others into it. And number two, to let others help me, because us men, we're big, strong, macho guys. And especially as Latino men, we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to bear everything, and persevere and be there for our families. Well, that's okay and good, and that doesn't change anything. But I think I was able to talk about it and had people in my life that helped me through that. That was probably the biggest point.
How was Anne able to support you through that process?
She very gently. She brought me to the faith. For example, we were married and we had young kids. Well, I wasn't going to go to church. I know it's interesting. I'm an ordained clergy now, years later, but I was mad at God. So I wasn't going to go to God. I wasn't going to go to church. So, but her faith, by leading as an example to our kids and to me, was exactly what I needed. So she would go to church with the kids when they were little. And their job was to come wake up Dad so I can watch the football games at 10 o'clock on Sundays, right? Sundays was for football, not for going to church in my eyes, because that God had abandoned my family and I. So it took from the mouths of babes. One time our 5-year-old son came up to wake me up, and she goes, "Dad, don't you love God?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, son?" "Of course I do." He says, "Well, why do we go to church to thank God and you don't?" Well, as a man, you need to lead as an example to your kids. So guess what? The following Sunday, I went to church. I didn't know why I was there. I didn't want to be there. They're standing, kneeling. What the heck's going on? I wasn't catechized in the faith. I didn't know what was supposed to be going on. But I found a way to try to cheat the system. Okay? I noticed after a couple of weeks, because I had to go, because I had to be a man and be there as an example to my kids. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there, but I had to be an example, right? Because the man part and the father part overrides everything else. So, but I noticed that, hey, you know what? I like that. I like people. There's that guy standing in the front door welcoming you into the church on there, that usher guy, the hospitality minister. I go, I could do that. Number one, I like people. But number two, I could take me longer to get to the pews. I can cheat a little bit of time of sitting down, right? And so I volunteered for that, okay, for all the wrong reasons on there. And then as it turns out, so I did that for several months. And then I realized, hey, there's that collection thing. It's kind of like halftime of the Mass, So, hey, I should volunteer for that. Because I can get up and waste a little time on there. I can get up and do things, and I kind of get to stretch my legs in the middle of the Mass. So again, I volunteered for all the wrong reasons on there. It was self-serving. It was just for me. But then something happened. Then they started having meetings for hospitality ministers and ushers. And I decided to go to a couple. Okay, just okay, I needed to do this and so forth. And then you start seeing people and you start talking to them, you start hearing people's faith journey. And slowly but surely, which I now find is the Word of God helping me and bringing me in closer. So I just needed to be open, to open up my eyes and my heart to see what was going on. But I noticed that I was drawing to this faith business. And what was this? So to cut a long story short, later on, when I got more involved in my faith, the more you learn about your faith, the stronger you are as a person. And that's what kind of brought me to the church in the first place.
And so what? So if somebody that goes through a similar situation where something tragic like that happens, and even they have some sort of guilt, what type of advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, find somebody that you can talk to. Find a confidant, find a mentor. You don't have to be in it alone. Some of the hardest moment, that was probably one of the hardest moments in your life. But, look to be able to deal with it. You can get help. You can talk to your spouses. You can talk to your family member, talk to your best friend. And as men, it's okay. We rationalize it as, we can't be, so people see us cry. We can't show signs of weakness. Well, a strong man is open and lets himself be vulnerable. So to me, that was the biggest change in my life, to be able to talk to others. So that's what my recommendation. I think find some things that you can help you move yourself forward. It never goes away. It's been several years now since the plane crash, but the anniversary every year is always real painful. You see certain things. I surround myself with airplanes and things like that. So whatever draws comfort for you, and sometimes talking about it, I talk about it freely to my kids because I want them to know that story. I want them to know what happened in their family that changed that. We had another moment in our lives that gave me a different direction as far as how not to act. Okay, for that was when the plane crashed. There's so many lessons I learned about things I should be doing, I could be doing. But we had a stillborn baby, my wife and I. And so we're there in the hospital, and this is before all the new modern technology. And finally, the nurse comes in and says, you have to do something with the baby. You have to go to a mortuary. You have to do something to, take care of the situation. Well, I was a young man in my late 20s, and obviously never had been in charge of a funeral or anything like that. We were still grieving from a few moments ago when the death of our baby. So I picked up the phone and I called the rectory, the Catholic church, with the priest on there. One of the priests that answered, I asked him, told him this is what happened. Is there anything I needed to do? And very cold, very callous. No, it's nothing for you to do. And well, I talked a little bit more. I didn't say anything. I go, well, can you recommend a Catholic mortuary? What do I do? And very cold, very callous. Hey, go ahead and look at the back of the bulletin. Any one of them will do. And I remember hanging up the phone and feeling so empty, so alone. This is one of the few times in my life where I thought I needed a priest, and he wasn't willing to give me the time. Now, I've forgiven him many times over, and he's passed away, God bless him. But I just remember thinking he didn't know my situation in my moment. I didn't know his. He could have been in the middle of something too. But the lesson to me was that I would always make sure to be there for others. Okay, analyze the situation. Don't be looking over somebody's shoulder to see if something better is in there. Be involved. Embrace your situation. Embrace the moment that you're talking to and the person, because that human being is asking you for help for a reason. So don't look beyond that to see what else you can do. You have an opportunity there. So that deeply affected me, and in the good way. At first I was angry, but in the way that I said, I will never be that person to somebody else. So I catch myself, because we're all human. So I catch myself, I was like, hey, am I doing that? And so those two complete ends of the spectrum, if you will, for me, but it taught me my life lessons that have impacted my life so much.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. One thing I really want to get across is how we have challenges in our life, and how the need to flip it, mm-hmm. to really turn those challenging situations into blessings, and I see in a lot of men, a lot of people in general, how we take those certain circumstances, the challenges in our life, and how it beats people up.
Right.
It beats him up inside. How how were you able to do that? How were you able to just kind of?
It I'll tell you, for many years it was 4 or 5 years where I was angry, and I didn't take it out on anybody. I didn't do anything terrible from that, but it was painful, and I didn't know what direction my life was. The the interesting part about that whole story about the plane crash and our son and so forth, and going back to church, you know, it now obviously changed me and made my life easier because I was able to open up my heart to God and to have a faith journey. But the biggest part is after I became ordained, I feel that everything I do is in honor of my brother. So, I mean, we started a foundation to be able to do that, the Diaconia Foundation, to mean servant, to do all the things that Louis had wanted to do, and he died at a young age. So I feel that my life, all the things that I've done, are to help glorify his memory and his service. And that's been a real saving grace. When you do something, some people, when you get involved in a way to help others, it doesn't have to be from a tragedy, but when you help other people, first of all, it's okay to feel good. It's okay to get your hands dirty in a positive way. You know, we used to go to the orphanage down in Tijuana, and it was a great day. You're exhausted, you're tired, but you're smiling because it's okay to help others. You know, and sometimes we kind of forget that. You know, I had a bishop that I have a lot of respect for, though. He says, you know, it's okay to feel good. It's okay to help others. He goes, but how we change the world is through social justice. You know, not necessarily, you know, feeding one mouth at a time, which is a great noble gesture, one mouth at a time. So I've worked a combination of that because my brother inspired me, continues to inspire me, and Tia Eva did. So the point, I guess, the bottom line is you can turn something really, really bad into a real positive in your life. And I think that's some of the things that got me through, was being able to turn things around and see what direction I want to go. So I've enjoyed sharing my talents and gifts, and it's all the glory to God and all to my brother and my family that did that to me.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you share your story, especially with the faith, just because it gets a lot of bad press, and when we hear the process of that strong faith, I think we don't hear that enough.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's, again, the big tough one. The tough guys. Sometimes as men, we're supposed to we have a different image. I'm the chaplain for the Downey Police Department, and I ride along regularly with the police officers. You know, I was there tragically when Officer Ricky Galvez was murdered in the parking lot there of our police station. So it's interesting because one of the times I try to ride with different officers every week, because I want to get to know them and I want them to have the comfort to be able to talk to me if they have other issues and so forth. And I noticed that somewhere in the first half hour of our ride along, you know, they're real cautious. Okay, they got the chaplain, you know, they got to act a certain way in their mind and so forth. So believe it or not, and so somewhere in the first half hour, I find a way to say the SH word, okay, somewhere in there. And you should see these officers. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, this guy's a normal Joe, you know? So because they're thinking of chaplain, they're thinking of the deacon, and then all of a sudden, again, I don't cuss, but I say that, you know, word somewhere in the sentence, and I'll tell you, it's just like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be such a long 8 hours tonight. This guy's normal. So I think sometimes is okay. So the perceptions are, if you have a faith-filled family or you're faith-filled in your life on there, that, you know, you're different. And, you know, you've got to be this holy Joes and so forth. Hey, I sin as much as the next person. I try to be conscious of that and ask for my forgiveness, because we're all imperfect in that way. But on the other hand, we're all perfect in God's eyes. And through sharing that faith and the witness, you know, we're all witnesses to God's goodness, just how we treat each other. You don't have to go to church to do that. It's a combination of things. We believe, like, for example, in my faith, Catholicism, we believe that we evangelize our faith, how we live our lives, that other people can see that on their own. You know, that guy's got something on there. What is it? Oh, he's Catholic. He's Catholicism on there. So all the different faiths have it, but they all have the good tenement of goodness in there, and it's to help others. And I think that's how we men get through things is, we're fixers. We want to fix things.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can't fix ourselves. And, we have to be passionate about what we're trying to do. But when you're in pain, and we turn to other things, we turn to drugs, we turn to alcohol, we turn to other things. So, but anyways, how we deal with it, I think, is real important.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just, again, seen it in many cases where we focus on the negative, and we focus on the people that are not there, that we think that they're going to be there at certain crises in our lives.
Yeah.
How were you able to deal with that? Because I know through experience, like, we think that certain people are going to be there, and life just kind of goes,
It depends on, the expectations we have for others sometimes gets us in trouble or lets us down, because we're putting expectations on other people that maybe don't have the same expectations of themselves. So that's how we get disappointed at times. When we're looking at others and counting on them, and then things happen. So I think that, that story I told you about baby Manny, that's happened several times in my life on other situations where you're counting on other people to be part of you. And it doesn't get easier, and it's still disappointing, and it's still, nothing was more hurtful than that particular day, but the power of forgiveness is what allows us to go forward. Being in the political arena, you have people that have called you names. There's, websites they're terrible websites that are put up about you and things that are lies, including people of faith, and so forth. So I think that's a disappointment is, that the people that, especially with your family, with God in your life on there, you set certain expectations, and those are the ones that you need to be able to count on. And sometimes people do let you down, and you get stabbed in the back sometimes too. There's aggressive, things that happen in your I'm not sure that's the right word, but there's things that happen in your life on there that you look at and like, why, but yeah, we all need avenues, and we all need people to reach out. That's the most important thing I think you and I have been talking about, especially for us men.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to wrap things up, what are some things now that you do to cope with things, even if you've talked about them before, but just some quick kind of like
get some downtime for yourself every day, even if it's 5 minutes. Okay, believe it or not, 2 or 3 minutes of prayer a day. It meditates you on there. Look for others. Look at the goodness of others. Take 2 minutes on there today and look at somebody else. Just look at them and think about it. What's the goodness in that person? It just changes you. And then one little trick that I've always done, this is before, after, and during, I still do it today. Every night, I always try to think, what new thing did I learn today? Okay? So, and sometimes it gets harder, okay? You think like, God, I had a normal day, the office and some people on there, but you learned something today, okay? By identifying it, it makes it real. So, think about it. We got 365 new things a year. Over 10 years is 3,650, and, 7,200, 7,300 over 20 years. It adds up. We learned a lot of stuff. So to me, that's the interesting part. So, and then I love reading biographies and autobiographies because I like seeing how other people handle things. And so it's always inspiration to me on there. Obviously, I'm in the political world, but it doesn't have to be political. So I learn from others, take a little time for yourself, take some enjoyment on there. It doesn't matter what kind of diets we're on and so forth. Everybody needs a cheeseburger once in a while, So, and our time gets shorter here. So the older I get, the more and more I appreciate the times that I have. So, take a little time for yourself. Go have a cigar once in a while, even if you don't smoke. It's all good. It's all good. So take some man time for yourself.
That's all right. Thank you, Mario. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Sure. God bless you, buddy. It's always good to be with you.